Every knife, when you're done sharpening it, should be at least low-level shaving sharp. Sharp enough to cleanly shave the hair off your arm. What? We've got the whetstone, the aluminum oxide whetstone, which is a man-made stone. I've got my natural stone. I have a file. And I have my steel, or my stick. I use these all. I tend to use just the steel and the natural stone the most. So starting at the beginning here. The first tool that I will use on a really, really bad knife is a file. Because, well, if I was going to use a nice smooth stone, it's going to take forever to grind off, to cut off enough steel off of that blade to get a nice edge on it if it's really dull. So we're going to use a file. You can do a grinder. I've used a belt sander before. That all works. You don't need the power tools. A $5 to $10, just a basic file will do the job just fine. After the file, I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my two stones. Doesn't necessarily matter which one. And then if I want to, I can finish it off with the steel. The steel is more of a final honing to take the burr off and make it a nice razor's edge. I'm going to recommend the standard universal knife angle of about 22.5 degrees. Sounds kind of hard to estimate that, but here's all you do. I do the same angle on my axes, on everything. So let's look at I'll give a close-up here. So here's how that goes for our degrees of work. So everybody understands that straight up and down, that would be 90 degrees. Let's go half of that, about a 45-degree angle. Okay, that's still ridiculous for a blade, but we're going to start at a 45-degree angle, and then we're going to drop it down half of that 45-degree angle, and that's the angle for sharpening on either stone or with the file. Once again, from about a 45-degree angle, we're going to do half of that. So, about there. That is approximately a 22.5 plus or minus degree angle, and that's more than adequate for any general use knife. I can get a nice hair shaving edge on that 23.5 plus or minus degree angle. This knife is definitely not what I'm going to hand my friend to cut a piece of tough chicken with. First thing I'm going to do is grab that file, and I'm going to do my approximately 23.5 degree angle. If you can see that there. About like that. And I'm going to grind down until I set a new angle on it. So I've worked on this side pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and turn it around and work on the other side. And you keep going on the second side until you can see that there's filings or a bit of a ridge of metal starting to collect on the opposite side. That's the burr. At that point, you know that you've got it filed, we're just about there, to the appropriate angle, and then we'll hit it on the stone and work from there. Here's another way. Now the file only cuts in one direction, so I can't do it like this. But I can pull this one against the file teeth, and then I can turn it around and I can pull that side against the file teeth. That works, and since we're still going to finish it on the stone, that is appropriate. Just remember, be careful when you're bringing this blade to you. I mean, that's getting sharp, which is the point for having a file handle there. Now that we're done with the file there, I'm going to move on to the stone. I'm going to use this aluminum oxide stone. It's the most common type of stone out there. Personally, I hate them, but it is the most common, and because it's more common, it's the most popular. They're just more messy and they require a lot more oil or water to function. So the aluminum oxide stones, you need to put an oil or a water on them. I prefer just a 3-in-1 oil. It lasts longer, water flows right through the stone, and they dry out too quickly. If the stone isn't lubricated, the stone will grind away. These are about as soft as a sandstone. I could take the tip of that knife and drag it through and tear that stone up. So we've got to lubricate it. Just a little oil here. No, there's some in here. Come on, there we go. A little 3-in-1 oil. And that will start to soak up into the stone fairly quickly too. So I'm going to do the same thing at that same 45, half of that angle. And what I'm going to do with this smaller knife is I'm going to do the circular motion. With just a light to moderate pressure. Now, I don't really like these stones because of, you can see it here, you can see this junk that's accumulating on the blade here. That stuff. These stones are a softer type of stone. They get really dirty. They create a lot of dusty, junky crud, and I don't like that. I prefer natural stones, either one like this that I cut myself, or a nice store-bought Arkansas oil stone, something like that. Let's get just a little more oil, apparently a lot more oil, on that stone. Just rub it in a bit. These stones get messy, that's why it's on the paper plate here. Alright, so 45 degrees, about half of that. Yep, that's about it. And just go ahead and I'm using this finger to press down a little more evenly on the blade, help me control it. If it's just back here, the blade's going to wobble a bit more. It's going to tend to flex a bit as I push down on the stone. Having this finger here keeps things more even. Now, I'm not overly fussy about counting the number of strokes because that just gets too hard to do. If you're going to try and count how many strokes you do, then you need every stroke to be a complete revolution across the blade, like this. I tend to like smaller sized ones, and that's just fine. I'm just going to approximate how much I did on one side. And when I think that's about enough, I will switch it over. I have to wipe that though because there's a lot of crud accumulating on there. Other side. Now, most of the time, an aluminum oxide stone will be more than adequate as a finishing stone. This one is not. This is a rough stone, a fairly coarse one. It's the only one they had at the hardware store yesterday morning. But this one is something like a 240 grit and 160 grit for these two different sides on it. Usually we're talking like a 400 and 600 grit or a 600 and 1000 grit. This one is much coarser, so it's not at all good for a finishing. But it helps us to cut metal away very quickly, and it's great for helping to put an edge on something that's been pretty dull. So if you have a more decent, finer stone than I do, you usually start on the coarser side. then you'll go to the finer side, because this stone is so coarse on both sides. I'm just using the finer side right now. You always got to do a little extra around the tip. Next up, I got my natural stone here. This is a piece of basalt that was fairly naturally smoothed. I sanded it down a little bit smoother on the belt sander on one edge. So, wrong knife, we're working on this one. So with this, it's the same thing. I want just a little bit of lubrication on there, but I don't need much. Just a drop is all that this one needs, because this stone is not going to absorb like the aluminum oxide. This stone, I can literally drop oil and it soaks right through it. It's so very porous. This one is not very porous. So just a little bit of oil or water or spit, that all works. And the same thing, I'm working on that same angle in that same circular motion. A little crud there. This stone is going to create a much finer, smoother edge, but it goes a lot slower because it's a harder and finer grit stone. The grain of it's much smoother, and it's going to cut a lot slower into the metal because of that. But I can see that metal rubbing right off fairly well onto this stone, so it has a moderate cut to it. Now we are getting close to a nice sharp edge on this blade. Make it clean here. I can feel that there is indeed a burr onto one side. Now to feel that, I am just rubbing my finger up like this. It's not going to cut it. I can do this with a razor sharp edge. I'm not going down towards the edge here. I'm going up past it on both sides. And you can feel this one side will be right smooth all the way over. Another side will have like a catch to it a little bit. That is this side on this blade. This side has the burr, or a little bit of metal kind of all the way down that just needs to come off. So I'm just going to use the same angle approximately that I was with that stone. I'm just going to go lightly across it. We're going to pull across and forward in that motion. Alright, let's see what it feels like. Give it a wipe. Still a little something there. Alright, let's see if it's going to shave the hair off my arm. Wow. Yep. Wow. That's shaving sharp. So that's how you sharpen a knife. Quite razor sharp. I'll have a few more videos coming soon with some different tips and tricks to sharpening them, using some different tools or doing it a little bit faster. So watch for those. In the meantime, I got to get running because somebody's got to go feed the animals. Well, I got chores to do, so I'll catch you later. Bye now.